Emergency pod time in classic fashion, about 45 minutes to an hour after we wrapped up our normal Monday pod. The Avs go ahead and get that Val Nichushkin extension done. 8 years, 6.125 is the AAV. Jesse Montano, AJ Haefele, Evan Rowell here. On with you guys. We were all kind of scattered out. I was getting my hair cut. Megan's at the gym. Rudo's a little MIA, still sick. So we scraped the pieces together. So you are stuck with me hosting again today. But we do have Evan back with us. Evan, good to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you.
It's been a minute. Good to have you on here.
I know.
I like that hat.
Big deal. Brings me out of retirement. Brings the couch back.
That's right. Have to. Floor sitters rise up.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, obviously this won't be a crazy long pod. We do have to get into this. It was a big enough deal that we said, no, we do need to get in front of the camera and talk about this one. So I already said the details. 8 years, 6.125 per year. I put out a tweet that said, look, there's a little bit higher dollar figure than I was expecting for a little bit longer term than I was expecting. I don't think you can say definitively it's bad. Or I don't think you can say definitively it's good. This is another one of those deals where time will tell. The Avs are definitely placing a pretty big bet here on Big Val. AJ, we'll start with you. Just your kind of overall thoughts when you saw the initial terms.
Sticker shock, man.
For sure.
There's some real sticker shock because when it was like 8 years, I was like, okay, well, the way that this typically, like historically works is that for people who are not the Nathan McKinnons, Connor McDavids of the world, if you get an 8-year deal, you typically give a little on AAV. We saw this last year. Great example. Last year, Gabe Landeskog, 8 years, but stopped at $7 million when there was talks that he might have a $9 million per year offer on the table out on the open market. We'll never know if that was true or not, but at $7 million, it felt like, okay, that's a pretty fair deal, just given comps and cap not going up very much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But this one ended up higher than I had ticketed on the AAV, and especially given the 8 years, because 8 years, you typically get a little bit lower annual number there, and when I saw the 8 years, I thought, wow, I wonder if they were able to get, because I was expecting like somewhere in the range of 6 years at 5.5, 5.75 is kind of where I had mentally prepared myself for this to land.
Yep.
And for it to go 6.1, when I saw the 8, I thought, wow, maybe they got this thing down to 5.25 or 5.1. And then for it to be both over 6 and 8 years felt like they must have some sort of information that these dudes that there was going to be a big free agent offer headed his way from it had to be more than at least one team for them to be comfortable doing that. So
here are my thoughts in that light. I thought the exact same thing. I said they must have some pretty good knowledge that he had some big time offers out there. And look, This is your own guy. You believe in him. You're going to know him better than anybody else. So they were very, very motivated to keep this. Evan, I'll ask you the same question before we get into a little bit more of the specifics. Just your kind of initial thoughts at the deal.
It was kind of like AJ. I had mentally prepared myself for like the Zach Hyman contract that he had gotten in Edmonton last year, because that was kind of who I was looking at, maybe the comp.
That was my comp, actually.
The 8 years is kind of what's throwing me off the most here, because UFAs, I expect the money to sometimes be ridiculous, and it's higher than I thought it was going to be, but the Avs don't typically give out 8 years, and like Cale Makar got 6 years, and that's a guy you want to commit as much time to. So it's the 8 years that are throwing me off, and yeah, it's a big sticker shock there, and for a guy who's had one 15-goal season, which would have been last year, the first time he passed 15 goals, and first time he's hit 35 points in his career, and chose a good year to have it. But yeah, the Avs must have had some sort of intel that they got rid of this legal tampering period because they must have been like, everyone knows it's out there.
Yeah.
Like, we don't care anymore.
They actually did it for TV, but yeah.
Yeah, like everyone knows where each goalie's going right now. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So the Avs absolutely had an idea of what's coming, and this is I now I want to know what he could have gotten on the open market because this deal seems really high to me.
Right. And look, like, I mean, it is one of those things where Val Nichushkin he's been here for 3 years. He's gotten better. It seems like every time you've watched him play, his role has elevated several times now with the Avs. He played a massive role in this postseason run. It's very clear they're looking at this guy and saying, first line winger for the next 6 to 8 years. And look, if you get that out of him and he builds on what he did last year, then 6.1, who cares? But you're banging pretty heavily off that. I to me, there's reasons to think he can do it, and there's reasons to think maybe he can't get quite back to that production wise. AJ, I know the production's been a big sticking point for you.
Yeah, and as Evan mentioned, like these are all he has a career high in goals, assists, points, shooting percentage, all in the same season. His shots, his shot attempts, all way up, way higher. Also, his ice time. You know, before this year, he had never averaged more than 15 minutes of ice time in a single season, and this year he finished at 1902. So they're like, look, like there are serious red flags here. If this guy had been a free agent on a different team that the Avalanche had signed, I would be looking at it and say it was a 7-year deal at the same number instead of an 8-year deal. Just, you know,
right.
I'd be looking at this and saying, look, this is a really big risk because these are guys that this is a guy that, like, look, he was on the third line scoring as many points as Tyson Jost was a year ago, 2 years ago. This guy's been and we were thrilled with that. Val Nichushkin having a 27-point season when he got here was a tremendous development for the Avalanche. That was a huge win for them. And then this year, not only do all of these things happen, he has career highs in all these, but the scoring environment in the NHL exploded. More guys than ever were having career years, point per game seasons, and this and that. And he had 52 points in 62 games. So it's not like his personal scoring went way up, but it's not like he went out and had the Kevin Fiala 85-point season. It wasn't like he had the Ryan Hartman 34-goal year where you're like, there's no way this guy is ever doing this again, right? But even in that environment, none of those things happen for him. And so you wonder, like, I do think that there is reason to be concerned about this. But I can tell you, for me personally, I'm not worried about any of it. I'm just not. I mean, we've watched him play next to Nathan MacKinnon throughout the postseason.
Mm-hmm.
We watched, normally what happens is great analytics guys, especially middle six guys, bottom six guys, they get promoted into higher roles because their analytics say this guy's a monster. You got to give him more. You got to give him more. And those numbers get worse because they're going against better competition. This dude had great underlying numbers, gets promoted into the top 6, and his numbers, all of his underlying numbers, blow the fuck up, get even better. His production explodes, and he turns into a top 3 or 4 player for them in a Stanley Cup run.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's easy. It's really, really easy. And time will tell if the Avalanche are in the midst of doing this right now. But it's really, really easy to fall in love with your guys in a cup run when everything breaks your way. And it's like this vision that you had of how the team should work comes together and it's like, and it all works your way, right? How much of that is repeatable? How much of that is something that you can really rely on to continue moving forward? And I think when you watch Nichushkin play and you see how the Avs play, you see the perfect marriage of a certain style and a skill set that is badly needed in the Avalanche group, and how it just made their top six so much better and harder to play against. Every line that he was on was that much harder to play against. So I've got major concerns about this. I listed them. I'm not worried about them because I think the fit between the player and the team is perfect. It's exceptional. He elevated all of them. I believe that he's going to be just fine. Even if he just remains a 50-point player and it's in 82 games instead of 62 games, I'm thrilled. If I could get 8 more years of him doing 25, 27, I'm thrilled. Especially when you consider 6.125 might be a lot today, but when that cap explodes in 2 to 3 years, that $6 million is going to be what they're paying. It's going to look like JT Compher's contract today. By the end of it, it's going to be peanut. It's going to be fine. You're just not going to be sweating it that much. And I think barring another pandemic shutting everything down in the NHL, I guess. But I'm the sticker shock was there, but I think that over the long haul, this guy has a game. He has a game and a style that's going to age well. He fits in great. I'm good with it, man. I'm good. I don't want to nitpick this one.
So there's two things there that I wanted to circle back to and Evan, maybe get your opinion on as well. One, it's that last thing you just said there, and this is something we had talked about earlier in the week. This is a guy, and look, obviously the production pays, right? So I don't want to eliminate that altogether, but this is a guy who, the way he plays and the effort he puts in, it is really easy to see value in him aside from his points. So that's number one. He brings a lot of, there he is. He brings a lot of value to the team other than the point production. Then when you add the point production on top of that, it's even better. Evan, this is the part I was going to ask you about. AJ made the comment, if this is a free agent from another team you're bringing in, you're looking at this saying, whoa, this is a huge risk. How does it make you feel better the way it does for me that this is a guy that comes from within your team, within your organization, that you know him a little bit better? Does it make you feel a little bit more comfortable on a risk like that?
Oh, absolutely. Because he has a history with these guys and he's built, this is the first time, this playoff run was the first time in forever where Jared Bednar did not have to default to the big line. Like he was just like, no, we can spread these guys out. And Nuke is the big part of that. Like you feel better because he's got a history. Like he showed chemistry with McKinnon. Not a lot of guys have shown that in the past. And
he's hard to play.
That is something that, I have sticker shock too, but the reality is if he's playing with McKinnon for maybe 80% of a season, he should be able to get 50 points easily and live up to this contract, because I don't think anyone really, especially on this podcast or Megan or anyone, has any concerns about the rest of this guy's game. Everything about this guy's game is, I said it on Twitter, like if a coach could build a forward, they might legitimately build Valeri Nichushkin, because he has everything you want. So it's just a matter of the production. And if, he's going to be in the top 6, they're paying him to play in the top 6, and, he just has to produce, and that's it, because there's no other questions.
Well, there's the story that has been circulating now within the last year as Val has kind of blown up, that at his rookie year training camp, Jaromir Jagr told members of the media, this kid's going to be the best player in the league in a few years, so just keep your eyes out. So like to your point, Evan, of all the tools, the physicality, the way he's actually built, you can't find a player that has everything. And we saw him start to put it together there in the last third of the season into the playoffs, stuff like that, where he looked like a dominant top 10 player. Rudo, good to see you.
Yeah.
Thoughts
get
on the Val
one
deal?
day to try and get healthy, and this happens.
That's all right.
'Tis
That's
the
all right.
season, brother.
Yeah,
'Tis
I
the
know it.
season.
You'll
Look,
be okay tomorrow.
that price probably a touch high for me, given that it's an 8-year deal. I think the end of that, you're definitely a little bit concerned, given Val's a pretty big guy, plays a pretty heavy game at times. At age 34, you do wonder about that a little bit. In the immediate, if he's the guy he was this year for the next 2, 3, 4 years, it's perfectly fine. I would have liked to see it under 6 for sure, but am I going to nitpick 500K? No.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think in the point, Ruda, that we were making kind of off the top is this makes it pretty obvious there was not only widespread league interest in him, but people were willing to pay. There were going to be some teams that were going to pony up, I'm assuming, even more than this.
Yeah, I'm sure some team would have given him like 7 or something insane, right?
Right,
But
right. And so look, the Avs wanted him. They see this as a big part of what they're doing, and someone not one of our Avs people in the DNVR chat, but said something along the lines of like, yeah, look, the Avs are ponying up. Like, people can't now get mad that they bargain bin Hunt and that they don't keep their guys or whatever. They're spending the money they need to spend to keep the guys here they think are important.
the one thing I will say is he did have a career high shooting percentage last year, shot nearly 14%. You do expect that to come down a little bit. At $6 million, you really, really need this guy to be a 20-goal scorer in your top 6. He needs to put the puck in the back of the net. So that's something he's going to have to keep up. Granted, he only played 62 games this year and put in 25. So if this is a guy that you can get to stay healthy, which he's done an okay job of in his career in Colorado. He's been a pretty healthy player, only missed 6 games in 1920 and just 1 in 2021. So if he's healthy for you and his goal scoring is consistent, I think you'll be happy with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to cut out those weird years in Dallas.
Yeah.
Where he shot 6.5% and then 0.
Yeah.
Every other season in his career, every other full season, I will also ignore the 8 games where he did not score a goal. 10.9, 11.5, 10.2, 13.9. So you're talking, even if that 13.9 goes back to his career norm of the 10-11 range, you're talking about 2 to 3 goals here.
Yeah.
Over the course of the season.
He also did shoot significantly more this year than he ever has in his career.
Yeah,
for the record.
Which, before you hopped on, I had mentioned that all of those numbers across the board are way up. But also correlated with all those numbers being higher is his ice time. And I don't think we're ever looking back at Val Nichushkin and then, well, I don't think anytime in the next 5 years the expectation should be Val Nichushkin is not in your top 6. Not playing 16, 17, 18 minutes a night for you. I think the expectation is now with this contract, there's no more whatever we get from him is fine.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's now
expectations.
expectations. Yeah, the pressure is on. He has to live up to his end of this now. The Avs rewarded him for being the reclamation project that worked out. The one home run that they hit in that regard.
Now,
100% rewarded him. Now it's on him.
Let me throw this out there too, because when was the last time the Avs had I'm going to go ahead and call him a top line guy, right? He's kind of got paid like one. I think it's kind of the expectation. You're going to play with McKinnon. When was the last time the Avs had a guy like this who played on their top line, who killed penalties, who played on the power play? I mean, this is a legitimate star for the Avs who does everything. This isn't JT Compher, Swiss Army knife. This guy's out there late in games to keep the other team from scoring. He's out there late in games to try to score when the Avs are down by 1. Evan, AJ, Rudo, do any of you guys remember the last time they had a guy quite like this, kind of in this tier of the roster?
They haven't had one. I mean, you could kind of like say Ryan O'Reilly, right? But they haven't had one that does the things Val does the way he does, particularly on the forecheck. He's just been so unbelievably good at getting in and doing those things. I guess maybe you look at Gabe Landeskog a little bit in a
Thank you.
similar fashion.
I was gonna say maybe
Mhm.
maybe like stylistically a little different, but like we're talking about Landy here.
And Landy's great, and they use him in that way, but Val brings a little bit of a different element, I think, just with the tenacity on
Mhm.
puck hounding a little bit. Not that Landy can't do it, but that Val is just an absolute maniac
Yeah,
when he's
it's what he
chasing down
does.
people with the
Huge.
puck.
And he's huge. That reach is ridiculous.
Yeah, so I really do think he does bring something very unique, especially when he's playing to his best. Again, if you get 60 points out of this guy in an 82-game season, he's worth every penny that the Avs have paid him. If you get 40 out of him,
Realistically-
that's where you're like, uh-oh.
But if he does 52 every single year, if he does this
Yeah, you're
season,
fine.
draws
You're
that,
fine.
every single year of this contract, you're incredibly happy.
Yeah.
If he does it for the next
do-
5 years and you win another cup or two along the way, you're thrilled with it. You don't worry about how a deal like that ages. If you go out and you win another Stanley Cup, like, are any of us ever going to complain about the Gabe Landeskog contract ever?
Nope.
They win a
Nope.
cup in year one, and however he ages and whatever that ends up being, that will be the problem for the end of that deal. We do not give a shit about it.
It's
Now, I
the
know
same
he's
thing for
a
Val.
little
Yeah.
different because he's a legacy guy and his number is going to get retired and blah, 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 blah. But
It's really not that different. I think it's the same for Val.
But
Like,
I do. I mean, when you do look at the age that Nichushkin's at, he's only going to be in his mid-30s. There's a reason to believe here that he can age fine into this.
Yeah.
They
It's
just
cool.
have to get a little bit. They just have to get a little bit lucky with those 32 to 34 years.
Yeah, and it's been a minute since Landeskog consistently was used in the penalty killing. Like
Yeah.
that was early in his career. And actually, I kind of wonder, like, if the Nuke is now a top 6 fixture, might be on the top line. If the Avs maybe like
Don't you
back
say
off using him on the penalty kill a little bit during the regular season. I'm just saying, like,
No,
I mean, they
it's
save
a
him
good
for the
point.
playoffs and things later in the year.
I'm good with that. If they wanna use him on the
Load
PK
management,
during the
baby.
postseason, I'm good with that. But don't just be like, oh, he's a top 6 guy now, so now he can't play special. No, this is part of why you paid him. You have to let him be who he is.
I'm in agreement
Get that
with you. I'm
value.
just
Get that value out of the
using
guy
some
from being
logic
who he
here.
is.
Using some
I absolutely think that you're onto something though, because that's 100% how coaches act.
Got a few super chats here. Definitely want to make sure we get to $2 from Ragnar Lothbrook. $2 here. AJ's Couch GM opinions. Isn't that why we're all here? Love DNVR. Thank you so much.
Been a weird day on Twitter, man. Been a weird day on Twitter.
This truly, as always, $5. Plutonium and uranium are very expensive, so makes sense. Love you all. And then a very generous $100 from Matthew Kerfman, not usually able to make it for the live shows. So consider this AAV for the entire season of great coverage. Thank you so much. Seriously, you guys don't know what that means to us. Just to have that kind of support from all of you guys that you're here, not only willing to listen to us, but spend money on us and send us very kind words.
It's crazy that we can just randomly go live and 450 people show up.
Right. Do either of you guys have anything else? I think we kind of touched on all the major stuff. I don't doubt for a second this contract will come up tomorrow and when we do the big live show on Wednesday. But anything else to just kind of wrap up the emergency?
Point that I made earlier today. They didn't have any second line guys signed. Now they have
Now
one.
they do.
I had that thought.
And we still weirdly have not gotten Colorado's qualifying offer list.
They're always the last one to release it.
They are typically last about it, but they're not usually. It's been 2.5 hours since the deadline passed, and we still don't know. Now, granted, the only mystery was Abe Kubel, and that got solved this morning, courtesy of Peter Baugh.
Yep.
So it's not really that big of a deal, but Lehkonen 100% got a qualifying offer. Lehkonen will be back. He will be next year. So you can essentially look and say, okay, 5 of the 6 guys for Colorado's top 6 are
it's just that
under
2C
organizational
spot.
control.
That's the big question mark. Yeah.
The big question mark. Josh Manson, second line center. Those are your roster spots that you really have to wonder about right now.
I will add I think it's very, very important for teams to have a Russian tie to keep a Russian pipeline open. Through the mid 2010s, the Avs did a very good job of that and getting Russian talent because they had other Russians on the team. Right now, Val is the only Russian on the Avs.
Georgiev.
He's not technically Russian, right? He's
from
Bulgarian.
Belarus.
Bulgaria.
So
See,
yeah, it's Bulgaria.
I think
My
he's
bad.
got 2 or 3 flags on his elite prospects
I
page.
can't get it straight, man.
I know one of them's
I'm,
Russia.
I'm never gonna get it. I give up.
But either way, having a Russian or two locked up and on your team that can be a contact for you when it comes to future free agents or kids,
yeah.
draft guys, that you can have a little bit of a Russian connection there
Very good point.
goes a long way.
So you're
100%.
saying they should go find one to play second line center that might be hitting the market in a couple days.
So what you're saying?
Well, so and it did look like, I think it was Chris Johnston said that Malkin is going to at the very least test the market.
Yeah, he's hitting the market. My only thing about this contract, we haven't brought it up. We can all assume. I mean, at this point, Kadri is unlikely to come back.
Yeah.
Lehkonen filled in a lot on that first power play, but we might see Nuke there, and that might be a way to sustain some offensive production from this
Put him in that bumper
contract.
spot.
Get him in the first power play unit, because that's, if you look at all the charts that are going up, power play is like the one that's like super low compared to everything, and maybe that's another way to get a lot out of this contract too. And then the other thing is, I wish his agent had negotiated my jersey deal that I bought this morning. I could have got a better deal.
You know, say just a little bit too late.
Yeah, I know.
Just a little bit. One more quick super chat on the way out. $13 Canadian from 22 Paper Dolls quietly deletes my panicked tweets.
Look, you're off work. Go get high.
Cool. Is everyone good? Feeling good?
Honestly, I just want to sit here and talk about free agency for the next 5 hours, but it's fine. Yeah, we're good.
I'll say we have to do that tomorrow, and then we
I
have a
understand.
5-hour show the next day.
I understand.
Please.
This is the most
Please.
exciting time of year, so I just
it's
want
great.
to talk about it all the
Look,
day.
that just means it's time to become a DNVR member, and AJ is going to be typing up a storm in the Discord. So,
There you go. Rudo, you
That's
can take
true.
us out. I hijacked your host.
no, I'm glad you did because I showed up late. So,
No, you're good.
man tries to take a quick little nap, and Valeri Nichushkin gets signed. So,
Oh,
thank you for
at
the
the buzzer.
$2.
At the buzzer.
Happy to protect Val from being drafted by Putin. Yeah,
Boy.
no, it's not a great situation over there. So we'll leave that where it is. We'll get out of here, hopefully for the last time today, unless Lecky gets signed in a couple hours, and we'll be back again. We love all of you so much. Again, tomorrow, if you want to see us in person and you're around, come on down to Dev Camp at Family Sports Center. Wednesday, we'll be live all day, hanging out, watching free agency. So we hope to see you there. But until the Avs do something else, we'll talk to you on the next one. Oh, God, where's the button? I wasn't.